Oh my gosh, is it actually working? I got all these error messages, so I didn't know if it was going to work or not. There is a slight delay here, so that's fine. I'm going to go back over to the meeting. So listen, right now we're waiting for Paul Lorenz to show up. He'll be on in a few moments, but let me just introduce really quickly. This is coming to you from Proyectos de Residencia, MAEC. In Mexico City. It's an artist residency. And here at the artist residency, we have 3 spaces that are live workspaces, and we offer different types of programming to support artists who are visiting us here in the city that range from just basic tourism things like taco tours and things like that to art exhibitions, creating exhibitions, open studio events, community events here in the space where we introduce the artists to local artists and other international artists who are living here in Mexico City, and all these various different things. Of course, during the time of coronavirus right now, we're closed for safety reasons, of course. So we've taken everything online. We have visiting artists, we have drawing groups, we have all different kinds of things, activities scheduled, art critique groups and things like that. And some of these are open to the public and will be broadcast here on YouTube. And other of these things will be, you need to be an artist in residence. So in order to become an artist in residence, you just need to go to the virtual artist, that's plural, ARTISTS, residency.com, the virtual artist residency.com. And you can register there to be an artist. The application is super easy. There's no cost for the application. There's scholarships and things to help cover the $12 a month membership fee if you're having financial issues, which many of us are at this time. And we'll try to give out as many scholarships as possible. And we also have a patron level as well, which is $50 a month. And each of the different levels, if you end up getting a scholarship, you don't get access to some of the one-on-one sessions with curators and various different things that come with the artist in residency and patron level, but you do get access, you do get a seat in the Zoom meetings for the drawing groups and all the other various different things that are happening. So these items are all posted on the Facebook page and in the website as well, which will also link you back to the Facebook events page, because the events there are the easiest way to get in contact with a lot of people and to share them easily. So right now that's what we're using. So just, check it out if you have time. The goal here is to create community, which is what we do here at Proyectos de Residencia. Is we work with artists to help them connect to other artists and make a difference in what they're doing in their studio practice. So the residency online is also here for you during that time as well. Just got a notification. That was not the notification of the artist arriving. Anyway, so, and then like tonight, if you're around, this is April 22nd. We have a drawing group tonight. Tomorrow we have a studio tour of the studio right behind you. So lots of options available. I saw him. Oh. Hello, how are you doing? Yeah, we can't hear you yet. Here, let's see. How's that?
Okay, we are good.
I can hear you now. Can you lean your iPad forward, because we're getting this extreme angle on you right now?
What works best for you? I don't know.
It's just that the angle was so high, we were staring up your nose.
Oh, yeah. We don't need to do that.
Yeah. Grooming rituals of artists throughout the world.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at my little screen down here, which I shouldn't be doing. I should just be looking at you. So is this okay?
That's better. Yes. Yeah. Much better.
It's much better. Okay. I'll take much better.
Okay. How are you doing today?
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. It's the craziness of everything that's happening, day by day. We just we take it as we can. So we have entered phase 3 here in Mexico City, and they're expecting to peak between May 2nd and the 8th. But there really there's not a lot of people who are really taking precautions. So it's quite frustrating. Yeah.
I hear you. It's very similar here, where there's a small faction of people ready to gear up and get businesses back open, and we still have 1,000,001 questions about this situation. And
Right. Yeah.
moving forward is going to be a huge challenge. So
Yeah, I think that's a major issue everywhere. I don't think it's isolated to just Mexico. Obviously, the culture is very different here, so we're here we're a little bit more touchy-feely and huggy and kissy, and we're more of a cluster sort of society here. So even today, I went to the Mercado because I had run out of dairy products, so I went to the Lecheria there to buy some cheese and milk and all this stuff. And like they have signs up and they have their bottles of hand sanitizer, but the employees are wearing their mask below their nose and not wearing, like wearing one glove, but like touching money with it and then touching the food, like it's just, you're like, oh, and how do you respond to that? That's not even.
Yeah, you can't. It's just the way
Is
it
that
is.
the Monumental Revolution behind you on the shelf up above you?
Yes.
That's like about 5 blocks from me here, 5 streets over, just on the other side of Reforma.
Yes, my partner Lewis, he likes making models and things, and that's one of his. We found it. Oh God, I don't even remember where we found it. The kit for it. So, it must have been in Merida. That's where we found it, in one of the bookstores.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So, how are things in your studio? I know that you had said that your main studio has been closed for a couple weeks now during quarantine.
Yeah. Well, home studio is we're in it right now, so it's.
Woohoo!
I know it's pretty much geared toward just working on the computer, and I have a drafting board and doing drawings and things, but it's pretty minimal in here. It's mostly things I can do on the computer. So a lot of digital things, the music, sound things, keeping things fairly neat. I'm working on a painting commission that I've been working on since November, which is in the garage because that's the only place I can really paint. But that means I have to take the car out, so I just have not been. It's just sitting down there in a box. It's like,
yeah, I think I've been talking to a lot of different artists about like what's happening with them, and everybody's expressing, everybody's being flexible, of course, because we all want to continue creating, but at the same time, we're hyper aware that our processes, our materials, and other things that are being affected by the quarantine as well. So we're just trying to do as much as we can. Oh, we lost your audio.
what?
Oh, there, you're back. I think you had your finger over the microphone or something.
Maybe. Okay.
I wish we could get you. I wish we could get you a little bit more level because we're just staring up at you and it's a little disorienting to.
Okay,
I think I'm going to stop looking at the screen. So I'm not like it's very like I'm going up a roller coaster.
Oh, I don't know what else. I don't know what to do with this thing. So.
What about the shelf behind you?
Let's see. Let's see. What can I lean this on here?
Or you could do what I do is I have mine set up further away, and then I just sit back from it a little bit so that I can.
Let me pull a chair up here.
Oh, that's so much. That's so much easier. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Good. And you can
I
still
appreciate.
hear.
Yeah, I can still hear you. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry about that. I was starting to feel a little bit like motion sickness from the.
No, we can't have that. We can't have that.
So back to we were talking about your studio practice and how the normal studio that you work in is closed right now, and that you're working from home. And so you have a project in the garage that probably, where are you at now? You're in Arizona, right?
I'm in Arizona in Buckeye,
In
which
Buckeye.
is about 30 miles west of Phoenix.
And what is the weather like there right now?
Sunny, it'll probably get into the low 80s today.
Okay, so it's
It'll
still
be
fairly
quite-
moderate.
Yeah, it'll be quite nice today.
I was just curious about working in your garage in Arizona. That just sounds like a more dangerous threat than the coronavirus.
It is much warmer in there than it is warm in there. But the studio building is in Phoenix. So it's in a new art center, the Shaneland Arts. It's got classrooms, it's got 4 independent art studios, art gallery, retail section. It's one big space. So it's kind of
Nice.
fun to be in there.
Nice. Has that been there for a while, or is it something new? Or
It's brand new. It opened maybe 8 months ago. So yeah, I'm one of the first artists that got a space in it. So it's a small space, but it's a fun space. It's a fun building to be in. And there's usually people walking around so they can come and watch you work, and because it's open, it's not, there's no doors or anything. So.
right. Yeah, I worked in a couple of spaces in Ventura, California, north of Los Angeles, for a few years prior to coming back to Mexico City. I really love, well, I mean, generally, even though the spaces were fairly open, the other artists were very respectful of your time. And if you're working and indicated that you're working, they'd leave you alone and stuff. But one of the things I really missed about that was the monthly art walks, and there's a gallery there, so there would be events there, and then you'd have people passing through, and it was the best way to create relationships with potential buyers. And it was that sort of that constancy, the consistency of people coming back and forth, and that generated sales. And here, when I moved here, and for the first year, I missed that a lot, and I was having a really hard time with it. So I started sponsoring some open studio events in my own studio. But when you don't have the volume of other artists there and stuff too, it doesn't engage on the same level. It's still interesting, which is how the residency came about, was because I was like, well, I have this unique space here. So I thought, well, I could very easily create studio spaces, live workspaces here, and have people coming from all over, you know.
Some days that's what you've got to do, is you've got to make it happen yourself. So,
well, isn't that what we're doing? I mean, I see that right now, just it's not very hard to find examples of artists, galleries, and organizations, who are all struggling right now to figure out what the pathway is going to be. But everybody's trying to be very creative about like exposure of artists, making sure that the doors can stay open after this is over with.
Exactly.
In your area, in Phoenix and stuff, are any of the museums or anything doing, something to try to mitigate the closures? Or
well, in Phoenix, there's the First Friday events where all the downtown galleries are open, and there's a lot of street vendors, and there's a lot going on. All of that is closed. So they're doing a lot of things through Zoom, through Instagram, anything to keep that kind of energy up. Then on the third Friday of each month, there's kind of the more quiet, a lot of galleries will change art on the third Friday. It's a little more quiet. All the street things aren't there. And some galleries are starting to have Zoom things on that third Friday as well. So, the stuff is out there. In general, Phoenix has a fairly quiet art scene to begin with. It's not like LA or New York or anything where there's big pockets and neighborhoods and there's stuff going on. It's not quite like that.
But the community itself is supportive of the art community, or it ages, the age group there tends to be over retirement age, right? Or my impression, I don't know that for certain.
There is that, but there's a huge young crowd. There's a huge Hispanic population. There's a lot going on. There's
Okay.
a lot. It's just a question of getting out and being part of it. Part of it, the problem is, as it gets warmer out,
Right.
you don't want to be outside. It's a desert, it's hot. You don't want to be out. So yeah, once it starts getting dark, and that's when things start happening. A lot happens in the winter because it's really beautiful. But
Right.
now, now that we're going to be heading into May, it's going to start getting really warm. So
Right.
you find your spots. But it's a big city. I think Phoenix is the 5th largest city in the United States now.
Oh,
So
I had no idea.
yeah, so you've got Tempe, where Arizona State University is, which has its own art thing going. You've got downtown Phoenix. You've got Scottsdale, which has its kind of Western kind of motif decorative art up there. So there's a lot. You find your spot that you're comfortable with and
Make it
find
work.
out. Yeah, make it work. Find out what's going on. And
Well, you were scheduled to come here and be an artist in residence during our Verano de Queer in June, and of course, obviously, that's not really possible at the moment. So, but I do hope that you'll come, when the next available window of time to travel is. Who knows what that is right now? So
exactly. I mean, it's just a weird limbo time right now. So
right.
we all kind of play it by ear. Luckily, being in Phoenix, it's only about a 1,500-mile drive down to Mexico City. So I think rather than flying, I am going to be driving. So
great. So I have a list of things that I need you to stick into your car.
I can do that.
You're gonna get a large box from Blick Art Supplies.
Oh, I will be going there. No question. No question.
Well, the problem I have here with, I've modified my process and media because what I had been doing up to about a year ago was working with Sennelier oil pastels, but they're impossible to get here. So generally, what I had been doing was have an underground mule system, where people would carry them coming from the United States, 4 or 5 sticks at a time, or, so
yeah, that's not a problem. You can make that happen.
Well, and again, the reoccurring theme here is artists do what they need to do to make it work. And in the quarantine or not in quarantine, we're always going to find a way to make it work. So it's great. You sent me your musical composition a few days ago, and it's quite gorgeous. You studied music at Vermont College of Fine Art, I think it is?
Yes. It was a very circuitous route to find myself in music and sound. When I was a child, I used to play the piano from about 8 years till high school. And then I stopped for many, many decades. But I was at a concert that was really intriguing, that led me to think about making how to find music. And basically the concert was this Greek composer, Yannis Xenakis, who at the time I had never heard of. But it turns out he was a structural engineer for Le Corbusier. And he was using his structural drawings as music scores, or the inspiration for those. And with my history in architecture, it's like I knew exactly what he was doing. It was a way of looking at music in a different way. And that kind of led me back into, what does a line sound like? How do these things that I do and I know, what's another facet to them? So that's how that all happened.
And when you were at the Vermont College of Fine Art, you were studying music composition, and you were using the music compositions as part of performance, right? Correct? Am I?
Yes, the time I spent in Vermont was interesting. I went in there with this idea of how I make music. And it was a very conceptual idea. And the minute I got there, virtually everybody who was in my master's program were all professional musicians, and they've had this huge history in life in live music, which I never had. So I was immediately kind of like thrown into the deep end of the pool here. It's like, I'm not familiar with any of this. So I was there and people would ask me, it's like, well, what do you play? It's like, well, I actually don't play anything. I used to play the piano. I'm not really a professional musician. And I would get chastised for saying that. It's like, don't ever say you're not a musician. It's like, well, the truth is I'm not a musician. It's like, it's obvious. But so it was like, what do I do? What do I do that I'm going to bring myself to this situation? So my live sound performances involve endurance drawing on the floor, drawing on walls, recording that sound. So I started introducing that into the music compositions that I was doing for the degree, which it was fun being the anomaly at the university. It was like being the what's he gonna do next? Is he gonna be on the floor doing something? It's like, what's he gonna do? So that was quite fun until I got chastised for doing that. It's like my last semester, I was kind of confronted with using this degree as a performance piece rather than music composition. It's like, man, it's like I can't win for anything. If I'm not a professional musician, I'm chastised. If I do what I do, I'm chastised. It's like, well, whatever. Right. This is what I do.
But you got your degree and you got out of there mostly unscathed, it seems.
yeah. I mean, it's
lots of therapy after that, but
it's taken a while to digest those 2 years of this, because it was finding a different vocabulary, finding a different way of speaking a language, and trying to appease all the powers that I had to appease and still move myself forward at the same time. So it was a complicated time.
I've been a college professor for many years and stuff too, but I also feel like sometimes by putting those restrictions and challenges around or in front of an artist, it also helps to eliminate a lot of things that could be distractions, but it forces the creativity to become almost a more rich or purified form because it's a pressure cooker, right?
Exactly. So a lot of nonsense falls by the side.
So if you were to distill that experience into one or more things that you learned, what was the most important thing that you learned from the experience?
That staying true to yourself and being in the moment. It's like I discovered during that time that my first impulses to do something were the real ones. And once I started overthinking, then things would start getting diluted and lose logic. It's like that initial idea was always the strongest one, and it was to keep that as the focus.
Would you call that intuition?
I don't know. I mean, it was just like the spark. It was like,
I ask because I have the same experiences. Like sometimes that spark will come to me, and then occasionally in the process I will start overthinking it, and the purity of the spark just diminishes, and the ideal gets lost very quickly. And then I could be frustrated, or,
well, there is very much a time factor that you get the spark, you get the idea down, you get the concept down, and then walk away. It's like, okay, let's just digest for a minute. We don't need to think about anything else. We got it down, we got it on a piece of paper, we got the idea down. Let's just hold on to that and kind of savor that for a bit.
Right.
I'm getting more and more like that with a lot of even the visual work. It's like, get the basis for it down quickly and then walk away. Give it a few days to percolate, let it rest for a while, and see it again. This isolation, having my computer and having all of the sounds I've recorded and pieces recorded, those sparks are coming back. I hear something. It's like, oh, this is a really cool impetus for something. Do it. Bring some other tracks in. Make something happen. Don't overthink it. Don't get to that point of refining so much or rethinking it. The energy happened. You got it. Walk away. Start something else now.
Talk to me about the connection between the composing, the audio compositions, and the composing of visual, how these things connect for you, and how that came to be for you.
Well, the visual was always the impetus for the sound. What does a painting sound like? What does a drawing sound like? And if you give a line a vertical axis and a horizontal axis, the vertical being pitch and the horizontal being time, you can graphically determine what a sound is. You give the line, it's going to be a cello. And you know the range of a cello, that's the range of the line vertically, time is horizontal, and you can figure out how long a note is, what all this is. And those kind of mathematical things I find really fascinating, because that touches on my life as an architect and that geometry. And now once you gather that data and you go into a computer or you have a live musician and you actually hear it, that suddenly becomes something else. Now we can take that sound and start manipulating that with other sounds and other drawings, or however that wants to manifest itself. But it always started with a drawing or a painting and trying to determine what that sounds like. Taking that graphic and putting it on graph paper or putting it directly on sheet music, just to see what time and distance creates.
It's interesting because I've listened to several of your different pieces, and some of them feel very unstructured, like almost John Cage, kind of experimental. And then some of them feel very solid, like they have this very sort of linear, kind of what you would expect from a musical composition. And I don't think that I've had the opportunity to see the image with the music, other than some of the videos of live performances that I've seen of yours as well. So,
well, that you really do need to see the score to see how the sound manifests from that. A lot of them are very linear, and a lot of them are. I did a string octet a few years ago. I wrote it in 2014, and it's based on 8 lines. And I was just taping paper together with these grids, and the lines just flowed across. These drawings are like 10 feet long, just these 8 lines. And then I figured out through these graphs, giving the geometry, instruments and length of time, And I discovered through this process that if a drawing is compositionally balanced and looks finished, sound works the exact same way. It'll sound finished as an end result. So trusting that, you go through this math process, and then you can start, you record that either with a computer program or with live musicians. And then you can start finding other balances, the dynamics of it, how things want to be played faster or louder or softer, the nuances of that. I like trusting musicians, and I don't like giving them a lot of direction. It's like, this was the idea, this is how you can think about it. Now go, just play it, just see what happens.
Well, I like the idea that you're using the word trust, because I find that, that's one of those things in which we as artists can easily get sort of stymied by, can be a roadblock to creativity, is the concept of trust in the process to bring things out. And, it does take a long time, a lot of experimentation and failure to understand that those lead to other things. So for me, that's where trust comes from. It's that process of repetition and
exactly.
Prolific repetition. I think for me is very important. I know artists who won't work for a year and then they'll just go into a deep mode and produce a ton of work, and then for another year, that will become all their exhibitions and things like that. I'm more comfortable with constant creation of things and experimentation. And it always seems like the exhibition element for me is always behind. So every time I go to an exhibition that I'm having, I look at the work, and to me, it's like almost retro. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I was doing a year ago. I wish you could see what I'm doing now. When you're doing these performances and things, you're really more in the moment of things.
You have to be in the moment, and that's what I find really exciting, because I've had this conversation when I was in Vermont also, the difference between being a performing artist and a performance artist. Mm-hmm. They're very different things. And
what are the differences for you? Like, what are the core differences for you?
The core differences, performance art is about being in the moment, in a very specific location, doing something that will not be repeated. Whereas a performing artist, they learn the symphony orchestra learns the symphony, they can play it in any orchestra hall over and over and over and over again. And performance art isn't that. It's a one moment time in a specific location, and you're either there and get it, or you missed it. And,
right.
I do.
But you have artifacts from the performance art side as well that you can display.
I do record things very primitively, literally just putting my phone on the ground, and that's and then work with that later. It's like, well, that's good information. What can I do with that? And then that becomes a manipulation for something else later, or snippets of it, or you reconstrue it somehow so that it has its own identity and its own life. And
right.
But all these things, it's all very sensitive to what you're doing at the time. When I do go to Mexico and I've worked down there, really the only materials I can find readily are oil paints and pre-stretched canvas. And I don't do many oil paintings any longer, though I did that for many, many, many years. But for some reason, when I'm in Mexico, it seems to be the thing I want to be doing, because those materials are readily available.
It's a very, particularly in the art supply stores, they seem to be more related to academic art practice. So those sort of supplies are available there. And they also seem to be very related to brands that are produced in Mexico themselves.
Yep.
So there's some quality, can be some quality issues with materials that create new effects and things. So that's what I love about traveling with art. It's just like, because you get to these different places, and if you're not traveling with your materials, or you're in the mode of experimentation and things, your art can change dramatically in a different city.
And it should, you know, you're being sensitive to where you are, I think, is really, really important. Oh God, it was like over 10 years ago, I was in a symposium in Tunisia, and I deliberately didn't bring any art supplies. I brought my favorite metal scraper, and I brought my favorite brush, which was this big, awful, I still use it, still my favorite brush, house painting brush. It's all gnarled and awful. That's the only things I showed up with. And where do you get paint? I have no idea. I went to a spice market and I bought bags of spices. And then I found a hardware store where they repaired cars. And I was able to buy a thinner of some sort and an oil of some sort. So I was just making my own paint out of spices and these chemicals. And it was great. It's like, that's what I do here. This is what being in the Sahara Desert means. This is the work that's going to happen here. And it was great fun. And
and you always learn new things from that process. I think there's a trap when you when something is created in controlled conditions and with controlled materials, and you have these experiences of it, you know how they're going to respond to each other. It could become a trap very easily to creativity, because once you feel that success, it's very hard to allow yourself to fail again. So traveling and experiencing art that way is a very, very eye-opening experience, just in terms of process, and like, oh, well, what am I comfortable with? How am I willing to, break and experiment with things? And
exactly. And I think that's really, really important. I mean, you have core values and core skills and core ideas that kind of flow in whatever it is you're working on. But yeah, it can become a trap where you suddenly get nervous, or I have to work on everything the same size. I have to use the same manufacturer. I have to use the same brushes. And it's like, no, you really don't. And I found, especially when I move, it's like getting rid of supplies, leaving art behind, it's like when I moved to Arizona, it's like, okay, this is something different here. Old ideas are staying behind. Let's do something else here. Let's see what else can happen.
Well, and environmentally, the environment that you're exposed to is a different stimulus. So colors and textures and sound, in your case, like all these things change. And so if you're open to the experience of it, it could yield something quite unique. I mean, look at Georgia O'Keeffe is a great example.
Exactly.
Of how her work changed through the years based on environmental conditions and colors and things,
And that's the beauty of being artists. We need to stay sensitive to our surroundings. We have our core way of doing things that we, as an individual, we have our way of doing things. But yeah, now play with that, explore around it, see what else. I know.
So what's coming out right now for you? Because in all the things that we're talking about in terms of like conditions, materials, light and sound, and all these things are being affected by quarantine for you. So what are you finding coming out of your studio, your modified studio right now during coronavirus?
I've been drawing over a lot of things. It's like just because it's old news, but it's like, well, okay, this is the basis for something. Let's see what else can happen. I've been taking a lot of photographs, and being at home, I've got my computer, I can download photographs. I have thousands of images from other projects, record photographs of old paintings, travel photos. You know, it's like taking my core ideas about geometry and balance. What can these, I've never played with digital photography really before. It's like, now I have this opportunity. What can happen here? And now, if I print this out, what does it sound like? I can figure out, I can figure out what this could be in an audible way as well. So,
well, and even the sound around you is changed because you're isolated to your home. So
very quiet. Yes.
Yeah. I think that's the theme of quarantine. I don't know about you. I generally work with music on most of the time, but I started my quarantine at the end of February, and now we're around the 20th, 23rd of April. Time is so nebulous right now. You and I have had several scheduling things happen because I honestly cannot seem to keep track of what day of the week it is and what hour it is. And like at 2 a.m, I'll be like, oh, it's 2 a.m. I have things that I'm supposed to do tomorrow. I should probably go to bed. You know, like I could stop. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do. So I think it's kind of it's exciting to see what people are coming up with. And I think the initial responses to the coronavirus, I saw a lot of, they're like standard sort of branding of masks, over things, because we're all wearing masks. And then, maybe a relationship to fear, visually, lots of illustration. It's a meme renaissance out there. Like more memes are being produced in quarantine than ever before. It could be a good or a bad thing. But it's kind of an interesting time to see how things are developing. I'm starting to notice at this point, now that most cities have been, around 3 to 4 weeks at least of quarantine, the theme of isolation and silence is starting to come out of a lot of the work.
It's very true. I personally, depending on what I'm working on, I do a lot of things in silence anyway. So it's interesting to what sounds do I want to hear? And I'm finding as I'm going through recordings and things, I'm gravitating toward a lot of louder, darker, industrial kind of slightly sinister kinds of sounds, because it plays off the silence that I'm in, but it's also, this whole situation of not knowing, of people dying, there's a darkness out there that
Sure.
That somehow is tapping into me, or I'm just being more aware of. I don't know what it is.
Well, I think the gift of artists is that we have the newspapers to give us facts and to keep linear timelines of the way things are occurring and organize those facts for us. But what often it doesn't do well is translate the human experience of what's occurring in the world currently on any given day, not just during quarantines. But we're sensitive to what's happening, and we translate those things into visual and music and dance and various things. So I think historically, the things that artists are doing right now during quarantine, especially because we have all this technology available to us that was not available in previous, versions of quarantine. So I think it's, there's a rich amount of creativity happening right now, which is a good contrast to the destruction of that darkness that is out there. I think it's really important that we participate in the, what I term the creative pandemic,
Exactly.
You know,
But it's in that piece of music I sent you to listen to. It's very, it's very fragile and very, um, there's a brightness to it. And I've been working on it since, and I've been making it going into minor, darker, lower tones and bringing in, for some reason, I've been doing a lot of recordings of my stomach digesting, because there's just
interesting.
something, it's completely random and it's part of me, but it's nothing I can control. I like not always being in control of what I'm doing. And suddenly bring in these organic sounds into something that's very controlled is something very different. And a recording I was working on that I made, I had the TV on at the time, and I'm picking up sounds of the TV, even though I have the microphone on my stomach, which is like this other residual information, this woman screaming, and then, all this very dramatic.
Like it wasn't the cooking channel.
Yeah, it's like, what is that? That's kind of interesting. Let's just put this track on and see what happens. And how does that want to find its way into this new situation? And I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's this, this ideal of intuition and the gut feeling and, and all the nerves and things that are in your stomach. And so that's an interesting juxtaposition of like, here's this hysteria over here on the TV and your stomach, and how is it going to respond to the stress of it, and what kind of sounds it could make.
And we are all sensitive and all connected to what it is we're doing. So it's not just me holding a pencil or me moving my mouse around. It's like internally what's going on, and what sound there is around me. How does that play into this? What is the reality of where I am? Which is something I wanted to do when I got to Mexico, is like take daily field recordings of whatever it was that's happening and incorporate that into something, or manipulate it into something, or take parts of it or cut it all up. Who knows? But that's the environment, and see what evolves out of that.
Yeah, well, we're not giving up on that. I mean, in this moment, things have evolved in different ways. But Existimos, the queer summer art show, which was supposed to be in conjunction with Gay Pride, now canceled. We're in discussions right now to move to like September, October. I'm actually really hoping for October because of Dia de los Muertos and all the cultural activities that are occurring. September is great too because of Mexican independence. So different flavors of things, but all very much Mexican cultural, institutions that are vibrant and colorful and lots of sound and the space that we're going to be doing this in. The ideal of what you work with, we're going to be in this turn of the century Porfirio style building just down the street, and it's 1912, and it hasn't been lived in, probably not in a formal way. I don't think it's been lived in for probably at least 50 years, but it's all these beautiful architectural elements with like layers of peeled paint and huge open spaces, and it's a beautiful color and texture. And I just imagine your artwork visually and audibly in those spaces. Especially using sounds from Mexico City, because this is a very, very audible city.
It certainly is.
You might hear in the background here at different points. We're on the inside of the building, but we're all in quarantine. So, there's 2 people and 2 horse-sized dogs above me. There's about 15 people living less than 10 feet from me on this side. And the entire family of this other neighbor from Colombia, their entire family is now in Mexico City. So there's I've counted at least 8 different people in that apartment. And that's just like literally within, 5 yards of where I'm sitting right now. So we get like all kinds of audio
Exactly.
stimulation. So,
and all of that is viable life. All of that is there to be used, explored, listened to, used in some way. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward. Looking forward.
I am too, and hopefully, well, I mean, you know, I think that's the issue right now with everybody, but in art terms, you know, that sort of unknown, like the what's in front of us, that sort of unknown is a part of the practice of art. So I think we're uniquely positioned to address the current climate, for sure. For sure.
And doing it our way. You know, we all bring a unique perspective to our life and our being. And all of that is extremely important to show who we are and how we react and how we reflect things. So yeah, this is a very tragic, very rich time also, because it puts us, like we were saying, like when you're in a foreign country, it puts you're the alien in something. And how do you find your way through it?
Oh my God, I'm the virus. I'm a virus in Mexico.
That's an interesting way of looking at this, though.
I get stares like that sometimes, but I think mostly it's like people looking at me like, you're a gringo. Why are you here? You don't have to be. You know, that kind of look.
It's like,
I don't want to start referring to myself as a virus, because that might bring some negative attention towards me.
But it's like, how close can you actually get before someone realizes you're too close? I don't know. I'm just going off on a tangent now, but
I know. Where do we find your work online? I know you have an Instagram. Do you have musical compositions that we can listen to online?
My musical compositions are at SoundCloud, www.soundcloud.com/PLorenz. Visual work is on my Tumblr blog, www.paullorenz.tumblr.com. Those are the two important ones. Those are the ones I'm most active with. So Instagram, slowly things, once they've digested on the other two sites, may find their way to Instagram. But
okay, good. I'll make sure to put a little ticker on the bottom there so that people can find you easily.
Definitely.
I am so looking forward to having you here. I hope that we get to a point soon where we can start making more concrete plans. You know,
definitely, but soon. These things can't be rushed. We will find the balance and make it happen.
Yes, absolutely. I thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. You could see behind me the larger studio here at Proyectos de Residencia. And I know that when you come, we're going to be filling, you know, space with your projects, and I'm so excited. So we'll be looking forward to that. And then, you know, maybe what we'll do is we'll follow up with a live interview while you're here, like something more, you know, personal and one-on-one in the actual space and stuff too. That's going to be a lot of fun.
We can do anything.
Right.
We can do whatever works. We can do anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I love it. Well, please stay safe and stay sane. I think that's going to
You too, Brian. I'll keep sending you stuff for you to look at and listen to. So.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'm loving getting examples of what people are working on, and you know, for my own practice, these conversations with different artists and things are helping me stay disciplined and on track with my own projects. So, and you know, that's really important right now.
It is, especially when we have time on our hands, we can, you know, lose it. So sometimes you need a little, you know.
Damn you, Netflix.
I know. My days are actually oddly really structured. It's like there's breakfast, I do my little digital meditation that goes out on my blog every morning, take the dog for a walk, take a shower, work a little bit more, make lunch. After lunch, maybe a movie or something, and then do something else in the evening. But there's like, there's a regimen.
Patterns.
There's a pattern within the things that need to get done. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, do please stay safe and let me know if you need anything at all. And if you're getting in your car and driving down, just let me know.
I will do that.
We'll spray you down with rubbing alcohol or something at the door. And
as long as you videotape it, it's like.
Right. I know. We got to make it into art.
Sounds good to me.
Great talking with you.
All right, Michael. Until later.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bink.